This is Shaji John from Alpha Maker Visual Media. In this session, we plan to study film creation. That is, to study the character profile of Linda, the actress in Happy Birthday to Me. Come to the sample study of her profile Linda. Age. Today is her 13th birthday, a day of taking a stock, a day of decision. She has one more day to harvest the efforts of her youth before saying goodbye to her dreams of success in show business. Main traits. She has a modest but not compelling talent, good looks and a good cheer, but no star quality. She deceives herself with a dead full of fantasies that tell her stardom is imminent. The managing trait, a capacity for honest self-assessment. Profession. Actress, but is she? According to the timetable she established for herself, her early 20s were to be spent on preliminaries, taking acting classes, auditioning, getting an agent, following leads in the trade papers, working in summer stock. In her late 20s, she wanted to go her commercials to live off-Broadway parts to develop her art. In her 30s, she expected stardom, but success has eluded her. Her husband has moved to Chicago and wants to know whether she is joining him or ending the marriage. Address. She lives in a seedy neighborhood in New York in an apartment she never cleans. It has a bathtub in the kitchen and a floor littered with the trade papers of show business publications that feed her fantasies. Values. Stanislavski would say that she loves herself in the art rather than the art in herself. She prizes the memory of her acting triumphs. Oil. A self-deceived, pretentious, director who fails to cast her in his poetic obsession. To bring her low batting average at finding acting jobs and get something worth saying in New York for goal, to be an Academy Award winner actress. Idol, Claire Bloom, whom she resembles. Epitaph, she lit the sky in summer storm. Internal conflict, she doubts whether she has enough talent and staying power to be a working actor. Interpersonal conflicts, she and her husband will break up if she does not go to Chicago with him. Societal and environmental conflicts, her auditions cause her apathy or pain. Best thing that could happen to this character, which could turn out to be the worst. She could get a part that sustains her illusion even if her husband leaves her. Worst thing that could happen to this character, which could turn out to be the best. She cannot get the off-Broadway part she covers. She renews her marriage and has children. Why does Bill root for this character? She is brave, gutsy, pretty, self-mocking, and not untalented. Voice. The inciting incident is a telegram from her husband, who is coming to New York to settle once and for all whether their marriage will be terminated or renewed in Chicago. Her inner voice says, "Well, Linda, happy birthday. 30 years old, and where are your little footprints in the sands of time? No husband anymore, no children, no Broadway stardom. Where are those headlines you were supposed to make?" She has a minister delivering her funeral oration. The early demise of Linda Brooks makes all our hearts heavy. The world and especially the theatre seems dimmer without her radiant beauty. We remember especially her luminous portrayal of Elizabeth, the Queen, Roanoke High School. Others were privileged to see her off Broadway debut in out brief cantle. The audience is beginning to root for Linda because her self-talk has irony and humor. Her inner monologues become a device in the film. They build a bond with the audience called empathy, creating empathy. On the screen, we see an old man pushing a wheelbarrow up a hill. He does not get out attention until suddenly the wheelbarrow starts to go backward. He starts to go backward to our muscles tighten. We have an urge to get up from our seats to help him regain his footing. He starts out slower than before, but pretty soon he gets up speed. He passes the point where he lost ground before. He almost reaches the top, then stops. He starts again, goes backward a step, and then gives it all he's got and makes it to the top. This man could be a mass murderer in the next scene, but right now we are bonded with him. This is empathy identification with a character that causes the audience to root for him or her. The empathy can build slowly as the character gradually responds to choices and obstacles. The audiences will be more likely to root for a protagonist if he or she responds in an endearing way, is funny, charming, more skillful than most of them, are more appealing than his or her adversaries. Undervalued by other characters, wrongly accused of or punished for a wrongdoing. Jean Valjean in The Les Miserables is sentenced to a long prison sentence for stealing a loaf of bread to feed his sister's starving family. The Russian emerged written in the laureate is modest Shun's praise makes the most of his circumstances is undervalued in his mental job. The hero of Welcome to IA is certainly undervalued when people in the same room with him cannot even see him at his own birthday party. All the skaters in the skater data, especially the lead, are extremely skillful. The protagonist gets our sympathy when he breaks ranks with the other boys in order to pursue a girl. Next we come to dialects of the film language. As you write your film and begin to visualize it, you may be attracted to any number of technical choices to enhance your story. The normal camera speed is 24 frames per second in film and 30 frames per second in video. You can underrank shoot at 8, 12 or 16 frames per second, which speeds up the action in a comical way to make his action appeal slow, graceful and poetic. You can over crank that is shoot at 48, 64 or more frames per second. Using a camera with a variable speed motor, even when slower action, you can use a high speed motor. You can do time lapse photography wherein you shoot one frame every few hours for the purpose of showing a flower bloom or wither in the lab. You can use fades, dissolves, superimpositions and so forth. In video you can use a paint box and do tricks with your image. You can also shoot in black and white, which is used to evoke earlier decades of the 20th century or to inform your audience to brace itself for a sober film. Optical and effects are nice, but a good story is your best for reaching an audience. Next, we come to developing the idea. Every screenplay has a premise and a protagonist. You can start with a premise at the end and then use the character form to design a protagonist whose action will illustrate the premise. Or you can start with a protagonist and then find ways to develop and test this character. Often by asking those questions on the form, what are the best and worst things that can happen to him or her? The answers should help you find a premise. After you decide on a premise and a protagonist, you need to do the following in order to develop your script. Create an antagonist, a character who opposes the protagonist with a sufficient force to threaten him or her and put the outcome in doubt. And other characters as you need them. Develop plot and structure ideas found through the step outline. Expand your story after using a story checklist. Write the treatment, revise it after feedback, write a first draft with the dialogue, convert the dialogue to action. Discover the controlling idea what your screenplay is all about. Restructure, focus, and unify the screenplay by asking yourself how how every scene supports the controlling idea. Unify your script and check your structure to make sure you have taken the audience on a good roller coaster ride. And finally, hold a reading to get a feedback. Revise after that the dialogue refinement continues through rehearsals, shooting and editing. Learn from early dialogue. Learn from early dialogue we mean the above sequence is the ideal, but in fact the mind and imagination are wayward like toddlers running from one distraction to another with you in pursuit. You may be plotting your story and get dialogue ideas, pretend them down, but remember that you want to show. Not all. The most honed shots have little or no dialogue. Visual storytelling often comes after replacing dialogue with action. Committing to dialogue and polishing it before you know much about you or hero and your screenplay will cost you time, and then you will be reluctant to throw the dialogue out if it no longer works. The most valuable thing about early dialogue is that you can comb through it for ideas, actions, and scenes. If two brothers are talking and one tells the other about saving his life when he was drowning, you may stumble into a rescue scene that will show in action, not words, how their relationship develops. More on conversation of a dialogue to action later. Next we come to status quo. A drama is a sudden change under um, pressure from fast breaking events. Your audiences needs to know the point of departure. What the situation is before the action of the screenplay creates changes. Is your story about the clan who contracts a mortal illness, loses his sense of humor, and then goes out laughing? You need to establish the clown before you tell the audience about the patient. If a daughter rebels after a lifetime of complaints, the audience needs to see the daughter conforming so that her later rebellion is gratifying. The foil. Unlike the protagonist, the foil does not change his or her values and is often a force to bring the protagonist back to the way things used to be. Suppose you want to write about the decline of promising high school pitcher from a small town who goes away on a scholarship. Meets a sexy townie on drugs and self-destructs. His status quo is that he is a model son, has top grades, a girlfriend he has known since kindergarten, with whom he has a chaste relationship and a great shutout record. When he changes later, his girlfriend does not. She retains her awesome hometown values and becomes the foil when she goes to his college to try to reclaim him. The inciting incident. The inciting incident upstairs the status quo and causes the character to take an unaccustomed action. It has been said that many great stories begin with a journey which takes the protagonist to new experience, a new set of people, values and issues. The character then makes the choices that causes him or her to relinquish original values. This is also called the taking an action. A female cop goes undercover, a runway wife joins the circus, a truant officer runs off with a teenage singer. The pitcher's journey begins when he says goodbye to his parents and girlfriend at the bus station, and he gets for college town where he meets the pivotal character. The femme fatale who awakens appetites he has suppressed, beating her and feeling hopelessly attracted to her is the inciting incident. He used drugs, gets him to buy a motorcycle with his housing and food money, dares him to do dangerous bike stunts with her, and embroils him in a triangle when her violent boyfriend gets out of jail. Just before the picture gets into a violent fight with a biker, which will lead to his self-destruction. His hometown girlfriend comes to visit him. She pleads with him to give up the other women, the violence she attracts, and the drugs she uses. The inciting incident need not be a person, it can be a storm, a car's or plane's engine trouble, the outbreak of war, it can be a sudden quarrel, robbery, or murder on TV sitcoms. The inciting incidents is frequently the visiting relative or the old war buddy who shows up with a different set of values and tests the status quo values of the principals. In Hamlet, the depth of the prince father is the inciting incident which brings Hamlet home to explore foul play. In Hamaki, the destabilizing event for a 12-year-old girl of mixed ancestry is the arrival of a Korean grandmother who upset the girl's expectations. Next we come to raise the stakes. This theme of course comes from poker. It is what the character has set at risk and stands to lose. The most stories, the stakes go up at least twice. In the belt, in the bet, a shot directed by Ted Debney, a compulsive gambler, is late with his playmate on a wager he has lost. At first, he is warned verbally. Then stake get raised when collector breaks his thumb as a stronger message to pay up. When he still does not pay, the mob wants a share in the daily business he earns with his upright brother. An uncle gives him a tip that pays off. He wins enough money on the bet to cover the debt and more. But then on the way out, he overhears a tough talking about another sure thing. Instead of paying in the mob, he goes back to the betting window for one more score. Next we come to plotting takes patience. Plotting can be a slow process. My own mentor, Thornton Wilder, whom I met when he became a daily visitor to rehearsals of his plays, King of Our Teeth, which I was then director at Harvard, used to find plotting exhausting. He could do it for only an hour at a time. At his play, The Merchant of Yonkers was an intricate farce written in his later years. The idea started out as a play by the German Johann Nepomuk Nestroy. Wilder's version fought on Broadway was reviled successfully and later was made into a movie. Then it was adapted for the musical stage and became the long-running hit Hello Dolly. So patient plotting can pay off. Developing the plot requires you to make your protagonist pay an increasingly greater price for his or her initial choice. Creating a step outline. Many professional screenwriters preparing a step outline to develop their plot. Here is a how to create one. Get a set of 3 by 5 inch index cards that you can put on a table or a bulletin board and move around. Each card will represent a specific scene in your story. It helps to a number of the cards, but use a pencil because you will be reshuffling the order of scenes and will have to do some erasing. You can also do a step outline on a computer, but the cards work better because your fingers make a tactile contact with your story. You will be writing the action, the building blocks of your plot in caps. Use action verbs that lead to change. So don't write he enters room, lies lamb, but rather the breaks into a room, finds a crack, boy fishes. Is not going to get your story very far unless it is followed by pulls up dead body that will jump start up your story. Finding structure. After you have filled out 20 to 30 cards, study them and try to see the structural arc of your story. Have you found the best order of the scenes so that you are introducing a progressive complications and increasing a jeopardy, causing the audience to worry about the protagonist? These two elements help build tension. The other part of structure is orchestration of the plot. The rising and falling of tension in well orchestrated story, a sense and serious scene is followed by a funny scene, a fast scene by a slow one. A rise tension is often followed by a plateau where you can let the audience rest, lulling them into a false sense of security. As the action appears to de-escalate during a plateau moment when the tension cools, a man and women running from the bad guys feel safe enough to explore their own relationship. But in many films, when they start to make love, their pursuits resurface to keep the tension and resolved. Usually, men and women do not complete the act of lovemaking until the antagonist has been vanquished. A Plato scene could also be a comic montage with music, or it could be a subplot scene. In the time expired mentioned earlier, the main action is the triangle between Bobby, his wife, and his transvestite lover. The comic subplot is about Bobby's mother, who's upset over the shepherd's pie. She wants to cook for him at the new clothes she wants to buy him. Another subplot involves the brother, who is obsessed with comic books and would never notice anything amiss. We are amused at the irrelevance of these issues to a man trying to decide whether he belongs to his wife or his transvestite lover. While looking for a structure, do not overlook the obvious. Do you have a first, second, and a third act, a beginning, middle, and end? Even if the rushes for shots are somewhat relaxed, your audience must have a rising expectations. A writer should write his story to raise expectation for audience. That is all today. Thank you, friends. This is Shaji John from Alpha Omega Visual Media. Kindly subscribe, like, and share. Okay, thank you.